Hey Travis,
Hey, how you doing?
pretty good. How are you this morning?
I'm good. Thanks for taking some time with me to talk about endangered species. I appreciate
You're
it.
very welcome, darling. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Ready? You want to start now?
Good, I don't mind.
Oh, cool. All right. So let's talk about endangered species. It feels a little similar to Rogue in some ways. It's clearly a film with a message to it.
Yes.
Animal conservation, protecting the animals, the wild. I love that about it. Talk to me a little bit about coming up with the idea for this one.
Well, it's part of a. I mean, it is very similar to Roe. It's supposed to be. It's part of hopefully, a series of movies that I'm going to
Mhm.
make, which have these kind of underlying ideas. I love shooting in wilderness places. I love, I love the African continent. I love these countries that I get to go to and make these little movies. They're all very small, because it gives me an amount of creative control, which I wouldn't have if I was doing something bigger and more expensive. The message is something that's profoundly important to me, and in a way, what I want to make sure is that they're not message movies. They're entertaining genre action and adventure pictures first.
Mhm.
They should be great fun to watch. If you get the message, fabulous. If you're interested in the message, fabulous. If you're not, okay, that's fine. Just enjoy the movie. I never like movies which wear their message first and
Right.
their entertainment value second. I don't think that gets anybody interested,
Right.
right? There's documentaries for that, and I obviously support all of those things. I'm a genre filmmaker, so
Right.
first of all, I want to crash cars and shoot guns and do that stuff. That's my great love. But I've been interested in natural history since I was a little kid. I ran wildlife hospitals. I was a vet's assistant. I was trained as a wildlife filmmaker. So that predated me ever becoming a narrative filmmaker. So I've been looking for a sort of journey back to those to a sort of fusion of those things, and that's kind of what I want to be at. So doing endangered species was the kind of the second of the three that I'm trying to do. It's a lockdown movie as well, so we're in the middle of COVID when this was happening. We didn't know how the hell to make the film. Was the bigger problem. The idea was to go back to kind of the places where we shot Rogue in South Africa with the same kind of crew. South Africa was closed, and we were all stuck in lockdown, wondering what we were going to do. I was trapped in the UK. My producer was in the US, and we were looking around for countries that would still be open. And I'd always wanted to go to Kenya as a, for its incredible wildlife and natural history and the landscapes and the people. And Kenya was open, so I called Molly and said, "Can we go?" And we called some Kenyan producers and said, "If we brought this film here, would that work?" And they're like, "Yeah, we can make this." So we went over there and did it, and it was kind of grew out of desperation. It grew out of being the ability to kind of isolate ourselves in the wilderness, which is what the movie is.
Right.
So the kind of the making of the movie and the movie itself became similar things.
What kind of challenges does shooting out in the wild? What kind of challenges does that heap upon you shooting out in the wild? I know you kind of gotten used to it maybe a little bit now, but it's still it's the wild. It's got to be a little unpredictable, right?
It is unpredictable shooting out in the wilderness. As you say, I'm very used to it now, so I kind of expect all productions to be like that. Whenever I'm offered a movie that shoots in a studio, I'm like, why would I want to do that? I mean, it sounds boring,
Right.
right? I've just done a production over here in Los Angeles, and it's like it's lovely going home in the evening and having lovely catering and all, but it's like that's not how filmmaking should be. I always thought it should be an adventure,
Mm,
and that's what I want. That's what I want to be. It should be a challenge. We should be carrying cameras up hillsides, and it should be boiling hot or freezing cold or raining, or we're jumping in rivers, or it's all of those things, because the process of making the movie for me is the fun bit.
mm,
I don't particularly like prep. I don't particularly like post. I like doing it. I like working with actors and a crew and being in this wilderness place. With shooting in Kenya, where there's not much infrastructure for filmmaking, the country has its own social issues. They don't care about Western filmmakers coming over to help us, but they're dealing with their own thing. There's the roads are pretty bare. We got to stay in a place called Amboseli National Park, which is this world famous place in the shadow of Kilimanjaro. So
mhm.
for me, it's like this iconic thing. I got to take a photograph of an elephant in front of Mount Kilimanjaro.
Wow.
That's it. I can retire now. But they are struggling. Like there's no tourism there during COVID, so there's no money. The rangers are struggling against poachers because the poaching's gone through the roof because there's no money for anything else. So there's social issues, and you've got to be very consciously aware of that. Physically going out, you've got to make sure that actors and crew are willing to do rock and roll. So that's one of the things I say to my cast, is that these are going to be tough shoots. And if you're not interested in that, if you want to be cosseted, then this is an MJ shoot is not for you. Luckily, Philip Winchester, who plays the dad, has worked with me for years. He knows what he's getting into.
Yeah.
With Rebecca Romijn, I'd said to her, when we first talked about it, said, this is going to be a pretty tough shoot. We'll put you somewhere nice. There'll be a nice lodge, but during our days, it's going to be dusty and boiling hot. And, this catering's probably going to be a wobbly, and, makeup, they're not going to be much in the team, makeup teams, just my daughter who's head of makeup. So she did everybody. Costume design, there's only one person in that crew. So are you prepared to work like that? And they're like, yeah. A lot of actors want to. They like to get outside their comfort zone. And Rebecca, I think she liked doing that.
Yeah. You worked with your daughter Isabel on this, just like with Rogue. Talk to me a little bit about that. You two pairing up as writers seems to kind of coincide with this move towards talking about animal conservation and things like that. Talk to me.
About
working together in both writing capacity and having to direct her as an actress as well. What was that like?
Listen, working with your family is the best thing. It's all that matters. They've supported me through my life and my transition. And with Isabel, she never wanted to particularly be a writer, but it turns out she's very gifted. So she wrote a couple of screenplays on her own. And I was looking for Rogue. It's like I didn't have time. So I was like, hey, help me on this. She was great. With Endangered Species, which we actually took from another script that we bought the rights to, which was a story I liked, but wasn't the script that I wanted. So I said to her, let's write this together. And again, she's really good at character. She doesn't care for the genre. She doesn't care for action. She's a drama person. And I bring all the genre beats to it. So she'll write a drama scene. And then I'll say, well, I need a car crash or an animal attack or a gunfight. And she'll be like, well, you do that. That's what you do. Right. So we have a good synthesis. And if there's a young woman in the movie, then the chances are it's going to be her. And not because she particularly wants to be an actress. It's because she's cheap and good, right? And it's one less person for me to travel. It's one less person for me to pay. There's that. She happens to be really good at what she does.
I was say she's actually really good in the role. So that works too, right?
Yeah, she's great, right? I didn't know whether she could do an American accent. And I kept saying to her, can you do an American accent? She'd say yes. I said, can I hear it? And she'd say no. She says you'll hear it when the cameras roll. I'm like, that's not really good enough. And if you weren't my daughter, we'd be having a proper conversation now.
It sounds a little bit like she's kind of got some of the same personality that Zoe has.
Oh, completely. She writes herself, right? Yeah. She's a gobby, precocious young lady. And my other daughter was head of makeup. She's a very talented makeup artist, so I roped her in to do it. And my son, who is also in the business, he couldn't come and play. But the more family I can build around me, the happier. Filmmaking is a family experience for me, whether you're directly related or not. I want it to feel that way. As I said, I like the experience of filmmaking. That's what I want. And I want to be surrounded by people who are having a good time. It can be challenging and tough, and we can get tense and we can have arguments. But at the end of the day, it's a communal experience. I'm the writer, producer, and director. So clearly I'm in charge, but I want everybody to bring their creativity, and that's where you get the best stuff, and it's the best experience.
You talked about not wanting to turn this into a message movie, and I think that's one of the things I did appreciate about it. But the messages are there, and I particularly like that you didn't just make it black and white. There's a lot of responsibility that goes on the family as well for their own
totally
and ignorance. Talk to me a little bit about putting that perspective on it as well, because a lot of movies might have ignored that aspect.
Well, I think the thing is, I've been involved in conservation natural history my whole life, right? So I try and see that it's not a black and white issue, certainly in terms of indigenous people using the resources around them, and the fact that, as Westerners, we are very judgmental, and we've grown up on wildlife documentaries where everything is pristine and perfect. And we can be, we can condemn people for doing certain things with the resources around them. I profoundly condemn the use of these animal resources, the Southeast Asian market and rhino horn and ivory and all those things, and the kind of the factory-like consumption of natural resources, But I don't think you can have a conversation about, and this is what Jerry O'Connell's character says. He says, Westerners come over here, and you were, Philip Winchester's character is an oil executive. Fossil fuel and the industrial post-industrial revolution use of fossil fuels have essentially brought this planet to the brink of extinction. There's no doubt about it, and you can have the conversation any way you want, but that's what's happened. Now we can fix it because we're also incredibly smart apes, and we will think our way out of the problem. And I believe that science will save us. But I don't think you can say to indigenous peoples from our kind of perch of Western excess that what you're doing with your rhinos, your elephants, your pangolins, whatever it's going to be, is objectively bad. There are no choices for a lot of people, particularly if you look at the rise in poaching all over again since COVID. Tourism dollars gone, people can't feed themselves. These are bigger issues. Right. So it's a social conversation. Of course, I don't want rhinos to die. I think they're extraordinary. I don't want any animal to be killed just for a trophy or some medicine which has no value. But I get that you can have the conversation. I think it's important for characters to put those conversations forward. And my personal point of view is different from necessarily from a character's point of view, but you've got to write the character honestly to the character. Jerry O'Connell's perspective as a poacher is he's lying because he's making an argument that he doesn't believe in. He just wants money, right? And if you look at how the poaching, not the guys on the ground who are doing it to feed their families, but those who are manipulating them all the way through the chain of the business up to Southeast Asia, that's horrific and needs to be dealt with. And I'm going to look at that in other movies as I can. But yeah, I'll keep chipping away at it until I get some response. But I mean, the good thing is, like Rogue, which was about lion farming, even though it was an action movie with Megan Fox, lion farming was the message. The South African government is making moves to make lion farming illegal now. In the last week, I've just heard about that. Now, I don't believe it's because of my movie at all, but it's a conversation you can have. And if you can have that, then maybe that's where we can make some progress.
Talk to me a little bit about bringing in Rebecca Romijn and Jerry O'Connell. My first instinct was that, they're going to be husband and wife in the movie, and then I was like, it's Philip Winchester instead. Okay, and I was like, it's Jerry O'Connell's the bad guy, and I was kind of surprised. Was there ever any thought to putting them together as husband and wife in this, or did you always take him as?
No, because I think Jerry's a really funny guy. I mean, Jerry's incredible energy, funny guy, and I like bad guys being played by funny men because there's always something slightly off kilter about them. He's also not been used dramatically very well, I don't think, so far. So when we were making the movie, putting it together, I knew that Phil was going to come play. I thought it's obvious for Phil to play the bad guy with the gun because that's what he can do very well. It's more interesting for him, and he and I, who worked together so much, for him to play a very different character. And he was very challenged by doing that. Rebecca, I didn't know her at all. I knew her work, but it was like she was on a list of possible actresses. She read the script. She liked it. We talked. She wanted to go back to Kenya. She was prepared to travel during COVID, which again was like a huge deal. She said, "Can I bring my family?" I'm like, "Okay, I think we have the resources to pay for your family to come out as well." I didn't know she was married to Jerry O'Connell at all. So it's like, Jerry wants to come. He's happy to help. What does that mean? So, he'll carry boxes and do stuff. And I went, oh no, but it's Jerry O'Connell you're married to. Will he be in it? I mean, surely he's more used to me being in it than carrying boxes. And he was like, yeah, I'll play this character. So it became a kind of, again, the whole familyness of it. Jerry being willing to get involved and then totally embracing the character, totally embracing the country and going out into the wilderness and spending time with rangers and just connecting to the place that he'd never been to before. And I think he profoundly changed him. I really do. That I know they named their wireless network at home after one of the lodges we went to. So it's just one of these things where you go to these African countries. I remember there are 54 countries within the African continent, and they're all very, very different. And I've been to a tiny handful, but the few I've been to, they are just so primal. It's not like going to one of the national parks in the US, which are extraordinary and majestic, but there's something about the African parks where you feel so connected to something deeply primordial. I can guess because there are still elephant and rhino and lion and leopard and things that will kill you and eat you, and you're viewed very much just as this tiny, inconsequential figure. And I like that. I think it's useful. It's good for me.
I know you're talking about possibly doing a series of these movies. Any ideas on what the next one might be about? Have you thought about that yet?
It's written and ready, honey.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, this one's going to be about, the oceans. So it'll be out at sea.
Awesome. Well, I look forward.
And I can't tell you more than that, but it's written. I'm just about to start building sets, and I'm just about to start trying to cast it. So hopefully in the next 8 months or so, we can have another conversation.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, whenever you're ready to talk about that one, I'd love to speak with you about that as well.
I'll be here and waiting, Travis.
Awesome. Thank you very much for taking some time with me. I wish you the best of luck with the film.
Thank you very much. Take care now.
All right, you too. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for checking out the show. If you like what we're laying down, please subscribe to our channel and click the bell to receive notifications for all of our latest stuff.